Fine. My name is Oren Holle. I live in northeast Kansas. To give you a little perspective that you can probably relate to, it's straight south of Lincoln, Nebraska, just across the border. And at this point, my farm is a retirement organic farm. At one time we were operating about 400 acres of cropland organically, and at the present time I'm on my quarter section and have about 60 acres of organic cropland and diversified crops of mostly corn, wheat, and soybeans with rotational crops mixed in with that. And I've been certified organic with Organic Crop Improvement Association since 1996. So we've got a few years under the belt. It's been a good relationship as far as I'm concerned. And I'm a member of Central Plains Organic Farmers Cooperative, where I do my marketing. A little bit more about that later. And serve on the board of directors for that marketing cooperative. And I'm also serving as president of Organic Farmers Agency for Relationship Marketing, OFARM. I've been serving as president of that organization since its inception, and served on that board of directors as well. So have a fairly long history of being involved in organic marketing initiatives. So we'll leave it at that for now.
All right, cool. And I'm going to let the USDA folks, if you could just maybe speak a little bit to, you can come down maybe this, and Morgan, can I bug you to move for just a second? I'm going to have them come down here quick, because I think this is going to be important for our folks who are joining us remote. Just do that. You guys can just sit and talk.
Okay. Hi, I'm Danita Gary. I work with the South Dakota State Farm Service Agency. And in my division, we basically administer the farm programs. And we also have the marketing assistant loans available to producers. So I'm on the program side, and I know it has been spoken about the farm loan side, and we don't have anybody here with that today. But with my division, we administer the Organic Certification Cost Share Program, which provides cost share assistance for the cost of producers becoming organically certified. So it's 75% of the cost of becoming organically certified or becoming getting your organic certificate. So it's 75% per scope, or a maximum of $750 per scope. So we're here to promote taking advantage of that. We also have the food safety certification for specialty crops, and that started in I believe 22 and 23, and it has also been extended into program year 24 and 25. And I'm not as familiar with that because actually here in South Dakota, we haven't had anybody taking advantage of that. But I do have fact sheets available here. You can also find fact sheets available on our Farm Service Agency website that talks about those programs.
Yeah, I'm Logan Kaufman. I am the disaster program manager in the South Dakota FSA state office in Huron, South Dakota. Primarily responsible for disaster programs and also some safety net programs as well. And primarily the one that I would discuss today is our non-insured crop disaster assistance program. That is an insurance-based program for basically any crop that would not be covered by federal crop insurance. So that in South Dakota here, that does cover a lot of our specialty crops. We've had a lot of discussion today on aronia berries. That is one crop that we do have producers in the state that have coverage on. So a lot of specialty producers might think that there's a lack of safety net available or risk protection available. So that's one thing that we do have to offer with FSA is a safety net program, a risk protection insurance program available for specialty crops and producers across the state as well. So.
Thank you.
Question, if I might.
Yeah.
So Are you familiar with and work with the Whole Farm Revenue Protection Program?
That would be.
So, yeah, so that would be a federal crop insurance program. But
Okay.
that would also be another program that would encompass some specialty crops for producers as well. It is a whole farm revenue protection program through the federal crop insurance or risk management agency. And that would pick up more of your non-traditional crops that you would typically see have insurance availability on.
Appreciate that. Yes, indications have been that for those that have extended themselves to, say, a small number of specialty crops and so forth, along with the regular cropping rotations, they've taken a hard look at that whole farm revenue thing. And there again, the thing probably that we've learned in that process is that you need to find an agent that's fully familiar with all the aspects of that program in order to really make it effectively work. Quite often we find agents are largely uninformed of the nuances that are available within those programs. So thank you.
Yes, I would agree.
Yes.
You're welcome.
If somebody does have a question, who should they contact? Because like in our area, our office doesn't seem to be our FSA office. I'm often educating them.
Mhm.
Yes. They don't
Yeah,
have a
they
lot
have
of.
the knowledge. So in
Mhm.
South Dakota, who would it would be a knowledgeable person to ask about that whole farm revenue protection?
The whole farm revenue protection program, if you're really interested in that, I would definitely reach out to your local crop insurance agent. Again, there is a separation there between FSA and federal crop insurance. So they are going to be the ones that are going to handle that would be your local crop insurance agents. But as anything FSA related on the three items that Danita and I have talked, you could certainly reach out to your local FSA office. If they have questions or if you would like to, producers can specifically reach out to Danita and myself in the state office as well. So,
Yes.
And your state office is here in Huron.
In
Yes, it is.
Huron.
Yep.
Yep.
and that
Yes.
information can be found on the USDA.gov. Also farmers.gov would have links to the state office contact information as well.
Another question, if I might.
Yep.
In South Dakota, are the applications for the cost share, are they always handled through the local offices, or is it done at the state level as well?
It's through the local offices.
Okay.
So, yes, I know in some states, the Department of Ag still administers the organic certification cost share program, but here in South Dakota, the Farm Service Agency administers it, and it would be through your local FSA office.
Okay. If we have any questions from there, that was the reason for my question. If somebody from South Dakota asked, then I know.
Okay,
All right, thanks, Oren.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us.
You're
today.
welcome.
Yes, thank you. It was nice meeting
Yes,
everyone,
thank you.
and please feel free to contact.
Okay. All right, Oren, you're back on center stage. I sent you some questions. Would you just like to go through the questions, or would you like me to ask the questions? What would you like to do?
We'll let you ask the questions and I'll respond to them. I was understanding that you were going to do a short presentation ahead of that.
Yeah, I should probably do that, shouldn't I? So let's do that quick. I'm going to share my screen. So you should see my screen now, Oren and Glenn.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So before Oren talks, I wanted just to share a little bit about our farming experience in South Dakota on our farm, and just share a little bit about the crop rotation practice, because the title of this presentation is Marketing the Whole Crop Rotation. And one of the other things that we did when we were deciding how to do this was thinking about how we could get crops in our buffer strips that were also marketable. So we're like marketing the whole farm. But the crop rotation practice is required in 7 CFR 205. The producer must implement a crop rotation, including but not limited to sod, cover crops, green manure crops, and catch crops that provide the following functions that are applicable to the operation. We've practiced a 5-year rotation on our farm. Sometimes we actually did a 7-year this time, but this is a typical 5-year crop rotation for South Dakota. This would follow a 3-year transition period of just alfalfa. So we recommend putting in alfalfa for 3 years. If you're going from like cold turkey conventional straight into organic, we went from alfalfa into this rotation. So our first year was corn, and then our second year was soybeans. Our third year was winter wheat. And then we did a cover crop mix, and we seeded oats, and we tilled that in, and then we put in, actually we're in alfalfa now for 3 years. But we did that because we got hit with a chemical pesticide residue drift problem, and we needed to clean the soil up. So we left it in for 3 years. But this rotation has worked for us. And I have some pictures in here of some of what our crops look like. I feel like we did, really well. Some other organic options for food and feed. I don't know if you'll have time to talk about some of these, but some other rotations that we haven't tried, but what we're interested in, and we know that buyers are looking for these, is barley, spelt, buckwheat, rye, field peas, lentils, beans or pulse crops, like pinto, navy, and red beans. So there has been a growing demand, for some of these. When they call you, they want truckloads. They're not going to call you and say, hey, can you send me like just a little bit? They're like, we want whole truckloads of this stuff. So that becomes a little bit of a problem for us. And then I wanted to share with all of you, I pulled actual data. So we did 8 acres. Our whole farm is 20 acres. I think that field, and Glenn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was it 8 or 10 acres? I think it was 8 harvestable acres, but that's what we harvested. It was at 950 net bushel. We did about 118 bushel to the acre. We marketed that at $8.25 a bushel. Our check to us was $7,822.98 on 8 acres. So that was really, really good. And then on our soybean crop that following year, it was 9 acres and we had 354 bushel. We actually got 40 bushel to the acre on that crop, which is amazing for organic soybeans. We marketed that at $25 a bushel. And on 9 acres, we got a net check in the bank of $8,825. Now, Oren's going to speak. These prices aren't at that level. They've actually gone down since a few years ago when we marketed this, but you can, on 100 acres, you could make a living selling organic crops and something like that. But this is what the September 18th, 2024 grain market prices for just generally what prices are looking like for organic. So as you can see, the prices are projected to go down, and they're just going down. So with that, Oren, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you. And then I'll go into our questions here. So the first question, I think you already answered, or maybe you could add on that, is what is OFARM and what role does it have in marketing organic grain?
Probably the simplest way to explain the function of OFARM is I start where my marketing program starts. I'm a member of the Central Plains Organic Farmers Cooperative. It's a full-fledged cooperative, and any of the inventory that I have for organic grains is listed in the inventory with Central Plains Organic Farmers. Central Plains does not buy your grain. They assist in marketing the grain, and so we develop the collective inventories from our members, call it blocking production, if you will. In other words, that allows us to approach the buyers with larger inventories of product that would meet their specifications. In addition to putting that inventory together, we offer a fairly extensive sampling, let's put it this way, instructions for proper sampling. And then we analyze the samples as needed. That, of course, is mostly on the food grade side. And since we market a significant amount of wheat, it becomes very important in that, because there's a number of factors involved in whether wheat's going to make good flour. Other food grains would be Occasionally some food grade soybeans. That's fairly limited because our production from year to year will vary quite a little bit. But food grade corn, we do have a number of irrigated producers that are in the Ogallala aquifer area, and they typically raise some very nice quality corn. But there again, there are some variabilities, and buyers usually want samples analyzed in order to establish whether it's what they need. We assist producers with the logistics, have good relationships with a number of trucking companies that are, positioned in the right places at the right time. We'll do the long hauls because we market wheat clear out to North Carolina to Lindley Mills. And so we want to make sure that when we ship a load and go on that kind of a distance, that everything is in order to begin with. We of course do the collections from the buyers. And in that light, I would mention that we're very cognizant of buyer trustworthiness, buyer relationships. We do due diligence and in analyzing their financial positions to make sure that our producers get paid. Just as a side note to that, we've had several major bankruptcies in the organic industry, most notably Pipeline Foods and Global Processing. And we can proudly say that due to, seeing some of the factors that were in their marketing programs prior to when those bankruptcies occurred, none of our producers got caught up in that. And currently, if you're on the internet with organic information, you've probably heard something recently about clawbacks. People that actually delivered grain were paid for it. Now they're supposed to pay the money back because they've been involved in a bankruptcy of one of those companies. A very dismal situation. And so we try to avoid those kind of things. And of course, we do the settlements to the producers. And all of this is for a set marketing service fee. It's not a matter of how cheap can we buy it, how high can we sell it. We know what the marketing service fee is going to be. And for that marketing service fee, we provide all of these services. A portion of that marketing services then flows to OFARM. And OFARM then might be best described, even though officially it's a marketing agency in common. It is an organization that is registered as a cooperative. It's organized under the auspices of the Capper-Volstead Act. And under those laws, it gives organizations or group of producers to act together in matters of marketing. And so Central Plains Organic Farmers then, as an organization, is a member of OFARM. And so that's how we individually become members of OFARM. These organizations that associate with OFARM are not required necessarily to be cooperatives. They can be sometimes a fairly loose-knit group. It could be limited liability corporations. Could be just a group of farmers working together. But one of our prerequisites is that they have either a marketing program with a market of their own, or maybe have an association with one of the member organizations that has a marketing program that they're able to access for a fee. So we market, of course, primarily the primary field crops, which in our region is still corn and soybeans. Corn all across the state, soybeans most in the eastern part of the state, wheat primarily out of the high quality wheat out of the western regions and up into Nebraska and into Colorado. And we market a significant amount of hard red winter wheat, which is desirable in its own right in the milling industry. In addition to that, some of the alternative crops that we have dealt with or are dealing with, there is, of course, some hay in rotation, so we market some hay from time to time. We're not in a region where spelt or pulse crops do well. We're a little too further south for that. As you think about your region, when you're talking about Huron, from there and going north, we recognize that pulse crops may be a good alternative. We We do some field peas, oats are used quite often as a cover crop for establishment of legume, and milo or grain sorghum is one of the alternatives that we have available to us, and might be something that'd be worth considering up in your part of the country. So we do market a variety of crops. And all of this is done with a full-time staff of marketers that we have hired, and they're working 100% on our behalf. They're in that market every day of the week. They know what's going on in the various markets, and we make every effort to go directly from the farm to an end user. Occasionally, we may use the services of a broker along the way, because there are sometimes exclusive arrangements between brokers and end users. But to the degree that it's possible, we go directly to the end user, and that usually nets the most money for the individual producer as well. So that's kind of a summary of how the involvement in OFARM happens, and my experience.
Thank you, Oren. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Next question is, what advice do you have for transitioning farmers trying to find markets for their future crop rotations? Is there a market for transitioning grain?
We have researched the possibility of trying to establish a transitional market, and up till so far, our conclusion has been that we remain somewhat reluctant to establish that market as transitional. And the reason being, you give the forces that are out there that affect policy within the organic industry. We don't want to find them in a position of bend the rules any more than they already are, in being able to use transitional grains as an alternative to organic grains. And so we've been a little reluctant to fully embrace that. There are, in most cases, or at least for the major crops, there are, non-GMO opportunities from time to time. And there again, with our marketers, being in the market all the time, they are aware of some of those opportunities that they exist. They will generally be a small premium over and above the conventional prices, but can be an assistance, because obviously if you're using organic practices, you're going to have a non-GMO designation at that point, and some of the non-GMO crops do have an opportunity for markets in the area. Most of those usually end up being regional opportunities, so marketers would be the ones that are aware of what opportunities might exist. And so that kind of leads me to a conclusion on this one, that to be part of a cooperative or part of a marketing group, in some cases, on some of these regional markets, it might be just a matter of a group of farmers that have set up a network where they talk to each other about the marketing opportunities, about their production, about their production methods and so forth, and at least having some background as to whether these alternative marketing opportunities might be for them. So again, if there isn't something that exists right in your area, I would strongly encourage you to maybe get involved with a few other growers and start establishing a network of cooperative conversation, if nothing else. I guess one of the things that we found a little bit disheartening, that we don't have a larger buying into the cooperative concept of marketing. When we see so much of it on the production side, it seems like organic producers are always willing to share their production information, their methodology, and so forth. And when it comes to marketing, they have a tendency to be more on their own. And when we look at the development of the transition of the market into what begins to look more and more like a conventional market at this point, we feel real strongly that this idea of cooperation in marketing is becoming more and more important all the time, because as these entities that are on the buy side become larger and larger, the voice of the individual producer and the volume that they represent becomes smaller and smaller. And so consequently, you just don't have a lot of clout. They're just simply asking, what the market will pay. And so we use the line quite a little. We say, at least we're going to the market with the price in mind, and we're working diligently to enhance that price as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions on that one? This next one might be, I might ask Lynn also to chime in on this one, and maybe Oren, you can speak from your own experience being an organic farmer, but is it possible to have an organic cash crop every year? Or are you going to have to take one of those five crops in your rotation and make it, like a plow down or something?
We have a few growers who fairly effectively have access to feedlot manure, since we have plenty of those in Kansas, and they use that as part of their fertility program. And their cover crop regimen may be to do the best they can to interseed it with their row crops. For the rest of us that are not in that mode, if we rely on our cover crops, the introduction of the small grains into the rotation is actually the secret. So that, as an example, we're far enough south, we can harvest soybeans early enough that we can go in and we can then seed winter wheat into that soybean stubble, and then when the wheat comes off the next summer, that's really a wide open opportunity to put a cover crop in between. And so we've harvested and been able to market cash wheat crop and then the cover crop for the rest of the summer, and then be able to go to being able to go to several alternatives for grain crops in the following year. So being a little further south than you are, that probably gives us a few more opportunities than you have. I guess I would just make this comment that we've had several people that have been working with other local, like their cooperative and so forth, with the increased emphasis on cover crops and soil building that we see even in conventional agriculture. There are now equipment items available that you can actually go in and you can interseed your cover crops into standing row crops. And for us as organic producers, that is really a pretty good opportunity, because we probably got a better seed bed preparation when you go for your last cultivation in corn or soybeans. We've really kind of got the ideal seed bed for just overseeding with a cover crop like rye, or for that matter, other things, radishes, peas, mung beans, those things that would be in a cover crop mix, and be able to put those out there and then hope for a nice summer rain in order to get them germinated. And some of them have had some success with that. And so that, again, that opens the door then, if that cover crop is established, that you have something there to feed the soil in the off season and be able to go back into an income producing crop the next year. So just, that's something that's new on the horizon, and we're certainly exploring that more to see what we can do. A number of years ago already, I saw one of the neighbors, I call him here, was not necessarily real close by. He actually had a seeding unit on top of his cultivator, so that when he went through his last pass with cultivation, actually had a seeding unit scattering cover crop seed out there in that freshly cultivated soil, and that was working pretty well for him. To my knowledge, he's still using that at this point.
I don't know, maybe you already addressed this, but does OFARM do anything with like specialty crops like aronia berries or anything else, or honey or anything like that?
We have, to my knowledge, in Central Plains, we have not marketed any aronia berry. We have not marketed any honey. One of the things, and well, you know Carmen Fernholz pretty well. He was involved in the cooperative initiative around the Kernza thing,
Mhm.
and that's still ongoing at this point. And so I know there's, that's one of the specialties that they work with. In our particular group here in Kansas, we'd primarily be talking about millet as an alternative to wheat. Example would be if western part of the state, they're accustomed to hailstorms. And if those happen at about the time when the wheat is starting to set its seed, they can go in and they could do millet. So that's one of the products that one of the specialties that we've marketed. And an alternative to corn is grain sorghum or milo, as we know it. And one of the reasons that it's gaining some popularity is because in the irrigated region over the Ogallala Aquifer, there's a lot of concern for the water supply. And you can grow a milo crop with a lot less water.
Mm.
And that's becoming a concern for a number of those people that irrigate out in that part of the country. Other than that, field peas. And we tried several times. We marketed them fairly successfully as feed, but didn't do real well agronomically because we're too far south with the heat that we experience. And it would seem like we ought to be able to get them in early enough and make it go, but it just seems like the season gets too warm, successfully growing field peas to be economically viable.
Okay. Very good. Any questions there? Okay. Just feel free to chime in if anybody has any questions. The next question was about, well, just kind of some of these questions are related around this topic of navigating the challenges with the current market fluctuations and securing premium prices. How can farmers best capitalize on these trends when it's not looking so great? Is there any hope in the future, Oren, it's going to get better?
Well, there again, I know on our marketing calls, when our marketers talk to each other, they talk about the trends and so forth. And even in the organic market, there are cycles. I think we would all agree that there is some significant influence when you're looking at what the conventional market is at the time. You heard this stuff about 1.5 times the conventional market and those kind of things. Okay, so when you're looking at corn under $4 at the present time and organic corn $6 or maybe a little bit north of that, then that's still in the market is kind of perceived as a respectable premium, but we all know that $6 corn in the organic market is not sustainable. And so we're kind of stuck in that right at the present time. One of the things that one of our marketers uses that line a lot. He says, "Don't fall in love with your grain." We have a tendency in the market that dismally you want to keep it in storage and hope that it's going to get better somewhere along the line. And it's probably not going to be a great recovery, but at least leave yourself in a position that when your marketer finds an opportunity for something that's better than what the ongoing market is currently to, be able to take advantage of that. And so indications are that for the near term, at least, we're going to be, below that 5-year average. And so they talk about corn carryover and all of that in the market, and we've got kind of a double-edged sword in that thing. When we talk about supply and demand, we're certainly in a situation where domestically we don't grow enough corn and soybeans for the organic market, and so they're importing. And so on the other hand, they're importing so much that we're seeing larger than necessary carryovers. And so producers are sitting there with a grain in their bin that they're reluctant to sell at these kind of price levels, and a good crop, basically a good crop coming on. And so it's not a good situation right at the present time. But again, we spent a lot of time talking about the value of having that marketer that's in the market all the time. And you find somebody that's caught short right at the moment and is willing to pay something that in some cases may be significantly above the current market level, and to be able to grasp those opportunities. And unless that, unless that inventory is available to them, they don't have an opportunity to act on it on your behalf. And so again, the importance of being involved with a marketing group and a marketer to represent you is real important in this kind of a dismal market. The other side of it is, in this market situation, and the imports, it's the subject of every conversation in organic circles among field crop growers at this point, obviously. And there's still always that question about the authenticity of the product that's coming in. I guess we use this opportunity to pat ourselves on the shoulder just a little bit when we first uncovered some of these fraudulent activities back in 2014, and worked very diligently and primarily through our then executive director, John Bobby, and his diligent work in uncovering much of the fraud and getting the news media to pick it up and all of that, and our collaboration with other organizations. We were able to together bring about the Standard for Organic Enforcement, which is the new rule, SOE as it's more commonly known. And it has done quite a bit in bringing all aspects of that global organic market into compliance under the part of the rule that says anybody that touches that product, organic handlers, all need to be certified. And since they all need to be certified, now at least they have an opportunity to examine the transactions and to be able to verify the authenticity. And so is it going to net a big change overnight? No, it probably will not. One of the initiatives that's underway currently is to hopefully get some language in the Farm Bill and maybe some Farm Bill funding for more extensive testing than what's been going on. And on these imports, that if they don't meet the specifications, that they can be stopped, shipments can be stopped and being forced to sold in the conventional market. But there again, that'll be somewhat limited. We brought about the cooperative nature between the government agencies, for instance, NOP and APHIS, CBP, Custom and Border Patrol. The relationships that have been developed there, that they have a much greater sense of what's actually going on, and are dealing with agencies that actually have the power to deal with these situations as they come along. Animal and plant health inspection, for an example, that if it's been treated, unduly treated, or if it's been contaminated in some way, shape, or form, or if it doesn't meet the specifications, so that some of these shipments can actually be stopped. And so we've come a long ways. Is it going to solve the problem in the short term? Probably not. In the long term, it's going to help. The other challenge in that is how global the market has become. And as we see the larger and larger entities move into the picture, we see the Cargills of the world being involved in it, and traders that operate across the globe. And so consequently, it's going to be a challenge. But one of the things that we are doing on a collective basis, together with the other organizations we collaborate with, is to keep the heat on with the National Organic Program in their surveillance of all of these activities. So we still think we're doing some good things. We've pointed out to them, they've thrown all this money on the organic transition initiative, much of what we're a part of here today. And they want us to be out there and encouraging farmers to transition to organic, but with this dismal market, we're telling them we're telling them that's falling on deaf ears unless we address this market. Unless we address this market issue, we're not going to see the growth in the domestic supply chain that we want to see as long as this situation exists. NOP, of course, is telling us they're washing their hands and saying that's not their forte. And not actually directly involved in any kind of initiatives that directly impact the market. So it's going to continue to be a challenge. We find ourselves, as we want to extend our opportunities to market in various areas with the bankruptcies that have taken place. Licensing has become under more scrutiny in the various states, and in some states that's a fairly expensive process. And so there are challenges along the way in order to provide the services that we would like to provide. But there again, all of these things, we come back to the thing, they're much better addressed in a cooperative setting. And we fully encourage producers to start talking to each other in marketing. And from that, be able to develop a relationship, maybe establish a marketing group within your area. Maybe it'll be a large enough group of producers that will have the opportunity to have their own organization and their own marketer, or work with one of the existing organizations in order to help make that happen. So that's our suggestion.
Thank you, Oren. That was a really good response. It answered about 5 of my other questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna skip down to this. How many South Dakota producers does your organization currently work with? Do you work with quite a few?
It's fairly limited at this point. That area would be serviced by the NF Organics program, which is National Farmers Organization's organics program.
Yep.
And that number of producers is currently limited, but they would be willing to service new producers. So that would be one of the contacts. And you can, if you go to the OFARM website, not at the present time, the NF Organics website, you'd be able to find the contact information.
Okay, they're out of Iowa, right? NF Organics?
Yes, their office headquarters is in Iowa. That's correct.
So
their marketer is actually located in Minnesota, but that's immaterial. Ours is too.
Okay. All right, Oren, last question. What's the good news in all this? It's challenging, but if it, and I know it's hard trying to get people to convince that now's a good time to transition to organic. Is it, so what on the upside, what's some of the good news? So I feel like this could be a good time to transition to organic with conventional prices being so low. But what do you think?
Well, it would appear like to us that are seasoned organic producers, and having gone through the transition process, it would appear like the good part of transitioning at this time is the cost cutting that's involved when you eliminate that high dollar cost of the inputs and the chemicals and the fertilizers. That's really significant. Organic seed is also cheaper than conventional. And so in that regard, it would be one of the reasons to consider it at this point. Realizing, of course, on the other hand, there is the challenge that that conventional market is absolutely awful. That's almost worse than the organic market. The only fallback is that on the conventional side, at least in your main crops, you have the possibility of the crop insurance program as a fallback. But which is also available during transition as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. So that might be one of the things to look at. To what extent can you work the crop insurance program and the price guarantees that are offered there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Have any other questions for Oren?
Optimism.
Optimism. Yeah, hope and yeah.
Let's
I
put
guess
it this way. There are producers that are jumping ship. With the corn price where it went, they transitioned, and most of those were not. Let's put it this way. We would say that maybe they were not transitioned to organic for the right reasons. It was all about the economics, and so consequently they're jumping ship. But the seasoned organic producers that have been in it for a long time, like myself, we're going to stay the course. Their $6 corn is still a hell of a lot better than $4 corn.
Yeah.
And even though the wheat price has backed off some, if we're still talking $16, $17 for good quality wheat as opposed to the conventional market, that's still pretty significant. Soybeans, we're probably, depending on what part of the country you're in, you're probably looking at more like the 15.5, 16, maybe a little stronger than that. Hopefully 17, 18 in many areas. That's still a heck of a lot better than the $10 we're seeing on the conventional side, and so we don't see any reason to be jumping ship at this point. Under good organic practices, we're still going to be able to keep our head above water.
Yeah, and that myth that you get a lot lower yields with organic, that's not necessarily true anymore with the advancement in new organic seed varieties. We're holding that you almost get as good or equivalent some of the hybrid conventional seeds.
Yes, I would agree with that. The potential is there, and for those that are paying significant attention to their fertility program, the yield drag is not as great as some perceive. I think all of us would say that we see some, probably most particularly in corn, not so much in soybeans. Wheat pretty well holds its own as well. But yeah, corn production, that does have its challenge in the organic system in order to maintain the fertility to keep up with conventional yields.
Yeah. All right, great. Glenn, do you have any questions for Oren or for anyone?
Yeah, I do have a question for him because I heard a little piece on the news today with the port workers strike. They actually mentioned the disruption in organic food and grain coming into the United States over the next few months, and that could impact for prices within the United States.
Yes, it could. And will it significantly impact the incoming? I would expect it will some, because our indications are that we're looking at particularly the African, Eastern African area. They do not have the port facilities there to load the bulk ships. And so most of that product is coming our direction in containers, particularly the soybeans. We've only heard of a couple boatloads coming in recently, and so yes, that could make a difference. We're probably going to see the bigger impact in the fruits and vegetables. Because if they go into a dock worker strike and any of that product sits in those containers for a couple of days, they can get beyond its point of use very quickly. And our problem is you just never know, depending on how the news media treats that situation can create rumors in the market that can affect it pretty drastically, and you just don't know what the outcome is going to be. But there again, we're looking at this dismal market, and so let's keep our eyes open. There may be some marketing opportunities that that surface during this period of time that might not exist otherwise. and get some of this inventory moved into the market and get some of this new crop underway.
Yeah, I know
So-
there's a conference coming up in next week in Minneapolis, with several buyers going to be there. I think it's like Food Ag Innovation or something like that. They are doing a sustainable spin-off on that, but it seems that buyers are looking for domestic product. Oren, there's a bigger conversation happening. Is that because of the concern for fraud of fraudulent grain or contaminated grain getting mixed in? Or do you see maybe that buyers are just going to start saying, we can get this local and we can also support our local farmers that way? Or do
Okay, I would answer that this way. Yes, I think generally we'd have to say that up to this point, as they look at the import situation, it's been all about the money.
okay.
Okay. The other side of it is that there is definitely a contingent at this point that consumers are beginning to ask some serious questions. They hear about this fraud and so forth, and so then they begin to ask themselves, is it really worth spending the extra money when we can't be real sure that it's that it's authentic organic? And because of that pushback in some of the markets, there are some of the entities that are in the organic business are putting some additional emphasis on domestic supply, and several of those are pretty large. They
Mhm.
want to, they want to maintain the trust in the organic label, and so consequently, they want to be able to label their product, and then it says made with 100% organic ingredients. And if you're going to put a chicken on the shelf and say that it's going to be fed domestic grains, that's a pretty big statement at this point.
Yeah.
But one of the largest in the business is doing that. Bell and Evans out of Hershey, Pennsylvania. They're very proudly in the Eastern Coast's market, championing that as part of their marketing program, that they support the domestic industry.
Yep. Well, that's another hope. That's another thought that it came to mind, that as I'm having conversations with buyers, I'm asking them why are you calling me for this particular load or whatever you're looking for? And they said that the consumers are asking for more support for local farmers and for the buyers to buy more local. They want local and organic. So I thought that was an interesting thought there. So.
No question. Consumers are still going to continue to help drive the market.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes our time, Oren. I really appreciate you joining us today. That was awesome. I learned a lot, and I appreciate your time and joining us. And does anybody have any other questions for Oren? All right.
Well, if the room, if these are newbies, make sure you take advantage of this organic transition program and get yourself hooked up with a mentor. If you're a seasoned organic grower, let's look for some of those people that are interested in transitioning and hook up with them, because there's money, there's money out there in order to help with that process. So I want to give a good shout out to the TOPS program. And, we keep promoting that. We've got a number of mentor-mentee pairs. And so we're look forward to that being an assistance. And then the other side of that is that once you get into that, don't forget about this cooperation. There's more to it than just the production side and learning how to do it, learning how to market it. That's where the profit is.
Thank you, Oren. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We heard about fight, fight, fight. Well, guess what? When the market's low, we need to pivot. We don't give up. We can't. And if a door's closed, a window will open, one way or the other. But when we're doing the right thing fundamentally, we're not going to give up. And if this honey sits, and even in the case of who knows, even in an economic challenging time, it's definitely an unusual time in our country with leadership. And we can all agree with hopefully there's stability with a new administration. That's, I think, factual, but my opinion there. But honey keeps, and one spoonful of honey can sustain life 24 hours. That's a pretty cool product. And we got a lot of spoonfuls of honey out here. We're over 1,000 barrels. So rather than having that honey inventory out of state and our cash flow a little easier and a little less debt, well, guess what? We've got a real commodity here. And if there is some instability, it'd be a real blessing for everybody here in South Dakota and around Huron and these counties. George McLean, the reason I moved to Huron, 1950s up to about 20 years ago, I moved to Huron to buy the inventory of
About 2013, I think you bought
an existing beekeeper at Huron. So, Angela, we'll just do a short walkthrough here. Okay. We do need epoxy on this floor and a little more trim, and obviously the honey bottling equipment to get installed in this space. But yeah, this will be a nice productive space for bottling. We've got 1,000 barrels of honey stored in the warehouse now, and each one of those barrels has enough quantity for 1,000 bottles of honey. So 1,000 bottles of honey, 1,000 barrels. That's 1 million bottles like you saw upstairs. And we can value add that, and rather than take a loss, let our honey go for low price matching import. We can value add. So that's definitely a justified carrot, and keep those dollars here in South Dakota. Yep. Hold on. I'll turn a light on here, Angela. This is a higher ceiling processing room. We've got exhaust fans for wine fermentation to draw the carbon dioxide out, and thermally controlled. But yeah, higher ceiling. We can have additional tanks if needed. But a lot of the wineries in South Dakota, they utilize these standard cube totes. So this room is not finished, but we do have some aronia berry wine currently fermenting here. But a small scale hobby looks like it's turning into a business. It's about 3,000 bottles of wine fermenting here, and we've got bottles ready. So anybody that wants to volunteer for helping cork, come on out in December. Yeah. So, but that's how any good opportunity starts. It starts small, and we want to grow this so we can produce tens of thousands of bottles of wine, or the non-alcoholic fresh berry juice as well. So not finished, but getting close. Yeah. And for marketing purpose too, we've toured a lot of vineyards across the country, actually, the Midwest. One marketing model, rather than just wine or wine bottle, we can use a beer bottle, a brown beer bottle capped. And that changes the market model a little more to a lot of guys who would not be a wine customer. If it's in a brown beer bottle, it's a little more of a Renaissance festival look, or a craft drink in that way. So that's a plan. We can use wine bottles as well as a brown capped bottle. Any other questions about kind of some of our ideas? Again, we're just on the beginning stage with some of the value-added winery and vineyard, 30 years beekeeping, but still on a learning curve with some of the aronia berries and grapes and wine purpose. But yeah, about 15 semi-loads of bees. Yep. We can trot down to the honey extracting end, and then just outside briefly by the vineyard area. Yep.
Oh, there's that's your personal truck,
You
right?
can leave the lights. Yep. We can just watch your step. We can just trot down to this end. Just, watch your step. Swing around this side. I mean, some of you have been through and seen honey extracting before, but we'll just do a short walk through. Our crew is doing pressure washing, cleanup our extracting season finished up right on schedule. John Meacham, he's a retired beekeeper. He spent, when did you start beekeeping, John?
68. I was
19
68 part-time for the McLeans and then went
Nin-
73 to full-time.
Okay, in the 60s.
January of
Oh yeah,
1968.
oh yeah,
That's when Gene hired me.
oh yeah. So we're trying to carry on that tradition. We need bees, we need pollinators, so we're carrying that on. We can go up these stairs and just take a look out at the extracting room briefly. This vantage point shows the honey extracting room. Like I say, they're just doing pressure wash cleanup. Yep. Each of these centrifugal extractors runs in sequence, so it's a modern, large-scale, busy place for 2 months. All of August and all of September, we're extracting honey.
So
Yeah.
how does it work?
Centrifugal force each.
So you put the,
Yeah, there's stainless steel racks that hold 80 honeycombs,
Okay.
and the centrifugal force spinning the warm honey. We have the pallets of fresh harvested boxes of honeycombs daily that go in a hot room that's underneath to the right, and it's 100 degrees. So 2-day pre-warms the honeycombs, and then they extract pretty nicely.
so
Yep.
then this table with the slant and set stuff and it flows down?
Yes, but there's stainless steel square racks that are slid on top of those for the intake and entrance and exit of each extractor. Yep. There's usually 5 employees that are working in the positions here. It's kind of an assembly line procedure. Honeycombs have the wax that's uncapped, and but come. We do have video of this and other pictures, I think, on our Facebook site too. But if there's a 2-month period, if you'd like to come back and see it in action.
What's the
pit? That's stainless steel, 7 foot deep. That's where the honey and some of the wax is separated. And then there's float switch pumps, 2 pumps that pump up into a 1,000-gallon stainless steel tank in the next warm room, and the honey comes through a wall with a big valve onto a big platform scale, and that's where we fill the barrels and the tote tanks. Yeah.
So-
Yep.
Is that then considered raw honey then?
Oh yes. All of our honey is considered raw, 100% raw.
Even though it's heated?
100 degrees. Raw honey is never above 120. 115 would be max. For bottling or gently straining, never above 115 degrees, and then that's considered raw. It keeps the natural enzyme and pollen life and just the nutritional value. Yep. When we have the meal, you could taste some down the other. So why don't we can walk out the exterior and then back up to the west end deck, and just come right back in, make a loop. You can just visually see some of the aronia berries and vineyard planting that we have. Our barrel inventory, those tanks are filled with fresh extracted honey as well. And all of these boxes behind us, there's about 24,000 boxes. They've already been extracted. First beekeeping truck. Yeah, kind of an antique, kind of a classic. But you can see beyond this 1956 Chevy, we've got, why don't we have this for the backdrop here? You guys want to gather up, I guess, this direction. I can just do a little description of what we've got. This site was auctioned in 2016, and I purchased 16 acres. There's a farmhouse. We use that for our H2A employees in the bee industry. Our employees use that for lodging. We've got 1 pond beyond the trees, and then right across the road beyond this bee truck trailer, we've got another pond. It's 20 feet deep, and reason is we've got a high geothermal, an artesian well, and that water is used for heating and cooling the bed and breakfast, lodging, and the meeting space. and then the outflow goes into these ponds. I believe we can use that. We had some tests done in the soil. Seems like it's the water quality would work for drip irrigation too. So while it's under pressure, that would be a kind of a win-win. Yeah. So we've got a grape vineyard. That's primarily our red grapes, Frontenac, and primarily Frontenac. And then we've got aronia, new plantings a year ago. And continuing to the west beyond this, that B truck, there's additional aronia. On the other side of the white popple shelter belt, we've got 2 other rows of aronia, and 1 row is fully mature. And just from 1 row, we harvested over 8 50-gallon barrels from one row. Very productive. Yeah. So, yeah, I encourage planting those. And like I say, you don't have to net those. The grapes, pruning and training and netting. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions on that? Yeah. But agritourism is a growing opportunity in South Dakota as well. I mean, the governor's been promoting that. We're part of a Highway 14 agritourism group as well, trying to draw some of that traffic off the interstate. Sure. There's more than just Mount Rushmore and the west side, so trying to tap into that. I think we'll be successful. I think so. Can offer some. We have 6 RV spots along the building further down as well. I didn't point those out, but then we can offer lodging and locally grown buffalo tacos or steak meal, and have some wine tasting and